What was the incident in your high school? A girl in her final year got pregnant and was hiding it from her parents. She was 18 at the time though. She went to the counselor, qualified clinical psychologist, who was helping her through it. The counselor walked her through all of her options and did what she was supposed to do. The girl, I think possibly in denial, carried the baby to quite far along but then wanted out. She was also starving herself. Long story short, I also can't remember all the exact details. She apparently went to a dodgy clinic where she convinced them she was much earlier in the pregnancy, guessing they did no tests, and they gave her abortions pills or something like that. Like I said, can't remember the exact deets, so don't crucify me. She started profusely bleeding in class the next day and was rushed to hospital. The baby survived for about 4 hours and then passed away. Obviously by his point her parents were there. Upon questioning she named out school counselor and said that she had forced her to have an abortion. This whole case went to court. Our poor school counselor could not say anything or defend herself publicly until the case was done. We had reporters outside our school gates for ages. It all came out at the end that the girl had lied and the counselor was completely innocent and had just done what she was supposed to do and had offered the girl all the information and advice for her to make an informed decision. I was amazed at how professional the counselor was and how she did everything by the book when it came to speaking about her client. Anyway, that was crazy. A football player with the last name Parham got punished for some shit and was no longer allowed to walk the stage for graduation. One day, a friend of his pulled up in a truck outside of the cafeteria during lunch, slammed on the brakes, jumped out, and proceeded to sprint inside. He streaked through half the cafeteria with a Spider-Man mask on and Free Parham painted on his bare ass. Staff tried to grab him and stop him. And despite him literally slipping on a piece of food and falling, he escaped valiantly as any hero should. Eventually, Parham was once again allowed to walk the stage, although I'm sure the stunt wasn't the only reason for it. So this happened yesterday, and it was pretty wild for a Canadian school. At the end of the day there was a police car at the front of the school. Someone said they saw a kid get arrested when they went to the washroom. At the end of the day, a cop and the principal were standing at both back passenger windows talking to someone inside. We all just assumed that someone was getting arrested for selling Drew Gus or something. The next day my homeroom teacher told us between 3rd and 4th period, the 2 afternoon periods in Canada, a former student who was about 20 years old blended in with students and snuck into the school hallways. He wandered through the hallways stealing from unlocked lockers and actually stole about 10 laptops from teachers' classrooms somehow. They ended up catching him at the Tim Hortons down the road. Not sure what's gonna happen to him, but someone said his mom was his getaway vehicle a couple blocks down the road. He just had to stop at Timmy's first. Only in Canada do people have to stop for a coffee and a donut mid-robbery. End of senior year, some kid was caught on video having sex with his freshman girlfriend in an abandoned stairwell. Everyone saw the video and talked about it for weeks. I think he was charged with sexual assault and was not able to graduate. Similar incident at my school. Teacher went through a kid's phone and found naked pics of his GF. He was 18 and she was 15. Cops got involved. They made him register as a sex offender. He healed himself 2 years after it. Funny enough, few years later the teacher got busted cause he saved all the pics from the phone. Ours was a sad one. Our boys' basketball team was traveling home from a game in inclement weather. The van caught some slush and lost control into the path of an oncoming tractor trailer. The coach was driving and survived. He lost his wife and 7 students. A very sad tragedy. Which guy takes massive sheet off the top floor of a massive stairwell? Same stairwell. Someone drops a pressurized can of soda, cracking open a teacher's skull. Someone brought in a decommissioned WW1 authentic stick grenade. The entire school was evacuated onto one yard for 4 hours while GOM squad were on their way. Our school's counselor who took kids out of lessons to help with low self-esteem committed suicide. That one's a bit sad tbh. Drama teacher got arrested for convincing two 14-year-old students to have sex while he watched, and he still works there. And a music teacher got sacked for coming in drunk. Twice. I love lower-class Britain. 2 girls were fighting over boy. They were in the bathroom. In the same stall. While they were fighting, one of the girls took out a pair of scissors and stabbed the other in the eye. The girl who stabbed her was expelled, and the other girl turned out to be just fine and went back to school like everything was normal. The creepy part was, my classroom was the closest one to the bathroom, and we didn't hear anything. We just saw the cops. It creeps me out to think it happened a couple feet away from me. Someone called in a GOM threat to my middle school and elementary school. Instead of evacuating both buildings, we were in lockdown for 3 hours and they condensed all of us in the middle school. We later evacuated to the high school only like 300 feet away and were stuck there for hours because our parents couldn't get to us. All of our phones were taken because they didn't want us giving information. So there were like 700 white moms and suburbans simultaneously having a heart attack trying to get to the school. We learned later they called this in to almost every school in the area. There was a robbery at a Bank of America while the cops were preoccupied. We had an in-building sub who would be the first sub called and usually worked every day at the school. A few months into school he was arrested and fired because it turned out he was getting 2 students to blow him after school. They were 14. He was caught because one of the girls' parents had installed some program on their computer and found the AIM chats. He ended up killing himself before going to jail. There had been rumors since my freshman year about the assistant principal taking a certain special interest in a few of the girls. Almost everyone wrote it off as high school kids starting stupid rumors. Until my senior year, when 4 police officers came in after school and walked him out in cuffs in front of a few hundred students watching a basketball game against another school. He was ducking one of the girls in my grade and selling her oxycodone in the hallways. Got 10 years. Senior year we received our yearbooks the week of graduation, and to our surprise the full-page action shot for men's soccer showcased our player jumping up and lifting one leg to trap and control the ball. Unfortunately, he forgot to wear underwear that game and the tip of his wiener was fully visible sticking out of the bottom of his shorts. Our school had over 4,000 students, and we were required to bring our yearbook into security to have the big dig sharpened over or we would not be able to walk at graduation. My grade lost 3 students. Sophomore year a boy was in the passenger side of a truck leaving a party, and was T-boned by a drunk driver and died. Junior year within days of each other a boy jumped out of the back of the bus in an attempt to skip school and go to the beach. He died days later in the hospital. A few guys skipped school to go dirt biking. One of the guys crashed without a helmet and died in his best friend's arms. The entire time I was in high school only 3 students at our school died. All were in my grade level. I cried watching their parents accept their diplomas at graduation. It was the last day for the senior class. There were only 2 significant pranks that day. The principal's office was filled with balloons and glitter, and the main hallway entrance was saran wrapped. About an hour before the day ended, the principal came over the loudspeaker and said that anyone caught participating in a prank would not walk at the graduation ceremony. About a minute after he said this, the fire alarm went off. A guy who was near the principal said that he got angry and said out loud, "Someone's not walking," before storming off. An entire wing of the school was hazy and smoke was pouring out of a classroom. Turns out the science teacher was doing a laser experiment for his class and created too much smoke with a smoke machine. We were all called to an emergency assembly and told a student had died. Her friends were distraught, and even the people who didn't know her went quiet. I think I remember a group of students putting together a type of memorial card. The whole morning was morbid, until the dead girl arrived at school and didn't know what was going on. This was back in the 70s. In 7th grade, some girl just started groping the boys. If you got close to her, she would immediately grab your groin or butt, whichever was closer. Sometimes she would grab both at the same time. Of course, the boys started groping her back, and it turned into a common thing to do, and she let it happen. The boys then started groping other girls. Some went along with it and thought it was funny. Others got upset and told teachers and the principal. The principal called a big assembly and read the riot act. The girl that started it all acted shocked and outraged, but the adults knew she was the one that started the whole thing. Gym cooling system overheated and caught on fire during the homecoming parade. That and state police had to show up 2 years ago after an increase of freshman fights in the cafeteria. It got to the point to where there were some rumors that school security had to use a taser on one of the kids after a fight to subdue. The rumor was complete BS, and our football team had to cancel a home game and concede the game over potential threats. It was a crappy junior year, 2017 to 2018. We had a teacher who was super nice. She was out for 3 days and we didn't question it much until she wasn't there again for the next week. Turns out her husband murdered her quite brutally. Was so quiet the next few months for that class we didn't really know how to process it. He's in prison and kids with the grandparents last I read. Quite sad. This kid was doing pull-ups on a door frame in our wood shop, and some of his friends thought it would be funny to place a pipe bender under his ass. When he finished his pull-ups and dropped off the frame, the pipe bender went straight up his butt and tore his rectum open. Kid didn't graduate cause he spent so much time in the ER, and now he has to sheet in a bag. Duck, I cringed so hard. Someone took a massive sheet in the boys' bathroom. Like huge. Like so big that there is still a debate about whether or not the sheet was actually human, or if it was smuggled in somehow. So notable that everyone from my consumer EC class got up individually to go to the bathroom, and dropped their jaw in awe at the absolute spectacle that was this sheet. Multiple jokes were made about it at school events, and to this day no one knows who did the poop. This guy I knew had a bowel problem and would only sheet about once a week. He was skin and bones. One time a friend ran out of the bathroom screaming. We went in and I saw the biggest sheet I've ever seen in my life. That thing was sticking out of the toilet. He didn't admit it until later when people were more amazed than grossed out. He was later referred to as the sheet. Someone I knew tried to call in a gum threat from a payphone during finals week. This was in the 90s and nobody took him seriously. And the school found out who it was and suspended him for like a couple days. I'd imagine now the school would go on lockdown. Or just close and not let any students in. Since he did it early in the morning, the kid would probably end up getting arrested by a SWAT team with a GOM squad nearby. Cost the city a fortune. Get jailed. Or at least expelled. And their life would be ruined. Yeah. We had a rash of fire alarms my junior year. The principal pleaded for them to stop. One weekend the school redid all the alarms with that ink that sprays whoever pulls it. Dude got nailed. Charged with a serious crime because he foolishly admitted to pulling like 10 alarms. He spent his Christmas at juvenile hall. Principal found we dug in the boys' bathroom. Called an assembly and told us we had to vote for who we think it was. I think the principal's son got like 98% of the votes. Suddenly the voting system wasn't valid. We didn't even coordinate it. Everyone had the same idea at once, and it was glorious. The son of my high school resource officer was the school drug dealer. My brother let him cheat off of his math tests for a discount on Drew Gus. Freshmen wrestling around in the back of a bus. One got a finger up the butt through clothes. In the paper for months. Coaches got fired. Kids got suspended and records. One of the managers on the bus had gone home and told her grandma someone was raped. So now there are cameras on every bus. Yet there was zero coverage or charges of the hazing at a football camp the summer previous at the Crosstown HS. That was just 4 seniors stripping a freshman and lathering him in icy hot, including up his butt. But they were just warned. Undercover cop posing as a student for 6 months. Busted a variety of students dealing and transporting Drew Gus edit. I tried searching for news articles about it, and apparently it's a common sting operation they do in SoCal schools around LA and San Diego and surrounding districts. Was elementary school in a major city. Our classroom was one of several temporary structures. Beside the actual school, some homeless dude burst in with a fish in his mouth. Everyone was speechless and quickly scattered away from him. Teacher somehow got him out of the class. Wild. Another time, same class. During class one morning we hear some noises from a student's desk. Teacher asks her to open it. She opens it, and it's a fucking pigeon, in a bag. The biggest question was how she got the pigeon in the bag. Just casually kidnapped one on the way to school one morning. During lunch, if you picked up trash and turned it in to the yard attendant, you would get a dime per piece. One kid did it religiously. Every lunch. And was tormented and bullied the whole time. Kids would knock the trash out of his hands, push him over when he picked it up, call him all sorts of names. They were relentless. Then in junior year, he bought a '66 Mustang. Not an incident really. But I still have respect for that kid. Kid in the year above decided, mid-ICT lesson, that he needed to drop the kids off. Teacher wouldn't let him go, so he decided to move to the back of the classroom and proceeded to sheet in an empty Pringles can. After dropping the log, he went round offering out Pringles to people. One kid stuck his hand in blind and got a handful of sheet. The kid was unsurprisingly hissed off and threw the handful of sheet at the kid who had the can. There was a whole fight and sheet was thrown over the whole room. It all had to be industrially cleaned, and even after that it still stank in there. It was grim. Oh my God! So many. I actually have a couple of friends who use Reddit who might remember these. Elementary school, first grade teacher died. Was replaced with a substitute for the rest of the year. She passed in her sleep. Our old band teacher was recently arrested for being a pedophile. Found out at homecoming when a friend told me. Sheets wild. Middle school, I remember 4 suicides from my middle school alone. The high school had many more. Couple of kids got pregnant. Someone would sneak into the bathrooms before school started and sheet. Remove it from the toilet with gloves. And toss it on the ceiling where it would stick. Happened 3 times before the kid was caught. Multiple lockdowns for GOM and shooting threats. High school, -3 fentanyl overdoses at a nearby high school, all resulting in death. That was this year. Crazy enough, not a lot has happened in high school besides the fentanyl thing. Pretty chill so far. Horndog High, seriously. Google it. Female Spanish teacher was caught having sex with another female teacher. By the janitor. Rumor has it they didn't let him join in or watch, so he ratted them out. Special ed teacher courted and dated a special ed girl. Female English teacher was selling weed and having sex with a male student. History teacher was monitoring the halls and found a girl blowing a dude in the stairway. Rumor has it he took off running and left her with a mouthful. People were setting fires in the trash cans in the lunchrooms. Edit, oh, and the female Spanish teacher? I was retelling this story to old classmates maybe 10 years after high school at a picnic when this Arnold Schwarzenegger-looking dude, he idolizes Arnie and just happens to look like him, tells us he dated her in high school and pulls out his phone with all these crazy text screenshots where she was begging him to see her one last time. And because she got caught, she was going through some tough shit and just needed it. Super creepy. But I guess hot if you're a high schooler. Oh, I have a few. A girl scratched a guy's face so hard he got a scar that runs from his forehead to his cheekbone, passing through the eye, almost blinding him. Because she felt like kicking his ass. A kid was caught smoking weed in the bathroom several times. Because his mother found out he smoked and prohibited him of leaving school during class hours so he couldn't come out and smoke. One Monday we arrived at the school to find a huge puddle of puke on the floor of the main hall. The Students' Association threw a party the night before, and nobody cleaned it, because they were all either drunk or stoned. After that, no more parties could be hosted at school. They were all hosted at event pavilions outside of school grounds. A girl, 16, got pregnant when confronted by her parents. She spilled all the beans. She and her boyfriend would wait until almost closing hours and have sex at secluded corners of the school grounds. When she gave birth, the father dragged the boyfriend to the hospital nursery, placed the baby on his arms and said, "This is yours. Deal with it." A really weird teacher was caught watching porn. His students turned the projector on in the middle of a test to mess with him, and found out. Edit. I just now remembered. The guy that got the scar was nicknamed White Nick Fury. Our school had a skiing trip, and it was open to years 10 to 13, so in the UK that's ages 14 to 18. During one night a few of the year 13s decided to play a prank and one of the 18-year-olds teabags another boy who was asleep. The boy was only 15 and was bullied relentlessly for the rest of the skiing trip. When he got home and was understandably upset, he told his parents, and they lost it. Immediately went to the school and got the police involved, who decided to investigate it as sexual assault on a minor. The school went into panic and gathered everyone from the skiing trip before the police arrived and told them that the incident didn't happen. Although knowing full well it did happen, they decided to help the 18-year-old out as to not ruin the rest of his life over a prank. The school did a pretty good job convincing the students it didn't happen, and the police thought it was just rumors. The 15-year-old was happy as he was no longer bullied, as everyone now believed it wasn't true, and the 18-year-old avoided prison. But yeah, the school technically covered up sexual assault on a minor. There was a special ed kid who drowned in my swim class. None of the caretakers kept an eye on him, and he drifted into the deep end. No one seen him until the lifeguard had to dive in and get him. From what I know, the lifeguard was fired. I can't say if the caretakers were fired too. Having journalists find us outside the school by the park and asking us questions about what happened was worse than seeing the dead kid being pulled out of the pool. I find that schools never do anything about bullying. The staff goes crazy about minor things in self-defense, but will only really punish bullies if somebody defends themselves. And the defender usually gets equal punishment. Unless something really bad happens, like this story, then minimal punishments are given to the perpetrator. My school was like this. I hit puberty early and was physically a full-grown man at about 14. This brick kept picking on me. He wouldn't stop. I don't like violence. I don't want to fight or hurt anyone, so I went to a teacher and told them what was going on and asked for help. Their response? "You're a big guy. Seems like you can deal with it yourself." So I endured it for at least another year until I went ate shit on him and got suspended for 3 days. Only reason he picked on me is because I was quiet and kept to myself. My father had died, so I was suicidally depressed and just wanted to be left alone. Sheet. There were a couple of noteworthy ones. Class of 96. Here. The chemistry teacher who taught a total of 190-some students who gave out 2 A's and 190-some -2 F's in 1994. They couldn't fire him because he had tenure, so the administration put him on extended leave for a year, and then wouldn't let him come back. Somebody shot a deer, dressed it up in a hunting jacket, stuck a cigarette in its mouth, and strung it up outside of the school in May of '96. Right before graduation. Failed arson attempt that resulted in the bathrooms on the 3rd floor being boarded up, one of them because the damage was extensive. The other just in case they tried again. Having classes on that floor sucked. During my senior year, the biggest fight of my school career broke out in one of the main hallways during class change. I don't think a single student in attendance that afternoon wasn't packed like a sardine somewhere in that hall. We were going absolutely nuts, jumping, screaming, chanting, fight, fight, fight. Riot mode at this point. Really. It was impossible to see who was fighting, much less break it up or make your way through. Principal realized that fairly quickly and called the police to send help. About 10 to 15 minutes later, 10 officers show up and bust through the crowd within seconds, only to find 2 students sitting crisscross on the floor playing a few rounds of Rock 'em Sock 'em Robots. Senior prank of the century. Absolutely hilarious and 100% safely executed. Quality senior prank. I'm just gonna start from elementary and work my way up. 4th grade, a couple of the boys who were rougher around the edges decided to bring pepper spray to school. We all had to line up at the doors on either end of the building before school starts, and then we'd all be let in at once. Well, the kids thought it'd be a great idea to pepper spray everyone lined up at the door. That she'd hurt man. Then one of them pepper sprayed himself so that he would seem like an innocent bystander. Didn't work out for him. 6th grade. My elementary was K6. We weren't allowed to go on the big grade 6 camping trip because too many kids were doing Drew Gus and or sexually active. The first and only time they have ever cancelled the trip. Middle school, one teacher was a huge pedo/perv and would look down girls' tops. He also coached the girls' volleyball team at the local uni. He ended up quitting, or that's what they say, to coach full-time. 8th grade science teacher was notorious for putting kids in their place. In a fun way, he would body chuck students in the hallways, dump kids in the garbage cans, and one time, there was a particularly annoying dude in the class. He tied the kid up with an extension cord, put him in a duffel and put him in the storage closet in the classroom. Pretty sure he is still working at that school, but I know he was told to chill the duck out. High school, 10th grade, one troubled kid lit the boys' bathroom on fire. Lots of smoke and fire damage. Was a huge thing in the city. 11th grade, one girl was rumored to have stuck a hose up her vag and masturbate with it on camera and sent it to the boys in school. Don't know if that's true or not. 12th grade, school caught on fire again. Different boys' bathroom and a different kid. Also, lots of ambulances at my school because we have a mechanics course and heavy-duty metalworks class, so there were a lot of injuries. During my senior year, some baseball player sodomized a younger player with a broomstick. Told him it was part of the initiation everyone went through. It was all over the news. It was also the high school that later made national headlines for a female assistant principal checking the underwear of some girls entering a dance to make sure they weren't wearing thongs. AP was reassigned. The infamous thong check incident. So every school has their weird kid. We're going to call my school's weird kid T. Everyone knew him, and knew something was off. He was an angry kid, but otherwise functional. Was in band, normal classes, but was really weird. Some examples: got mad and broke a window in a practice room. Was found but naked in the room the color guard girls kept their things. Threatened people, etc. But we never actually hurt anyone. He was actually very kind to me. Well, our senior year, he said he had a big surprise for the last day of classes. Half the school didn't show up, honestly expecting him to bring a gum or something. Lo and behold, T shows up to school in a dress and a wig and makeup with a new name. Totally normal, sweet girl now. Waitress. Nice. You'd never know. TL/DR. We thought the weird kid was gonna heal us, but instead he came to school as a girl. Edit. A few comments about transphobia. T knows I posted this and actually read it before posting. She got a laugh from it and commented on how much happier of a person she is now. This really makes sense to me. My partner went to high school with a guy, we'll call him J. and was fairly close friends with him. When we got together during uni, Jay was still around and I considered him the most annoying person on the planet. I could barely stand to be in a room with Jay because he was just so manic, and it made me uncomfortable and irritated. One day we get a message from a mutual friend telling us that Jay was transitioning to become Lady J, and that she had asked this friend to word people up. A couple of months pass before we see Lady J at a small catch-up. And it's night and day. Jay was insufferable. But all the traits that made me hate him were clearly him making up for hiding Lady J. Lady J is still not exactly my bestie. But I can be alone in a room with her and not want to shake her until she shuts up. She no longer nervously yells catchphrases. Or has to be the loudest voice in the room. She's finally comfortable. And it shows. I had my reservations about how entrenched someone being trans was. I grew up in a small country town where they're even very anti-gay. But since seeing the change in Jay, I 100% support that some people need to transition. When a student made an Instagram page to make memes making fun of students and teachers. Eventually it got really personal. There was this one time this girl got fingered on the bus by one of the jocks, and they made a ton of memes about it. So finally the school had an assembly to find the culprit. The guy came forward and got suspended, but the very next day the Instagram page made a meme about that assembly and basically told everyone that it was run by a team of students. One of which is in another town 2 hours away. The food and textiles and part of the IT department burned down because of faulty dryer, and the school was shut for 4 days. About 1/4 of the school was blocked off for several months, which made going to classes very difficult and tedious, and I spent my form time/home room in a different classroom until the portables arrived and were placed in the most inconvenient location campus. Thankfully I and all of my belongings were safe. But anyone who had anything in their lockers in those departments never got anything back as they were all destroyed. I'm not sure if anyone got money back for them. Freshman year we went on emergency lockdown one day. It was unknown as to why for about 5 minutes until all the teachers received an email that said the local K-12 charter school, only about 2 miles away, was being shot up. The shooting wasn't as bad as many, but one person did end up dying. Unsurprisingly, the next year a ton of students from that school transferred over to my school. Not a big deal for my school individually, but it's weird knowing that some of the people at your school have experienced a shooting. This will probably be lost. But oh well. I grew up in a small town. Small school district. My graduating class had 63 kids. My brother was a year older than me. There was a guy in his grade. Let's say his name was Brad. My brother saves Brad's life one day in football practice. Bro was the student athletic trainer, and insisted that Brad was too hot to continue practice even though the jerk coach thought Brad could continue. We grew up with Brad. We'd known him our whole life. I was a sophomore. Bro and Brad were juniors. Later that year, Brad and his girlfriend broke up and he started dating another girl. Apparently she was jealous of the ex and Brad decided that to make her happy. He had to go and heal his ex. He literally cut her heart out. This girl's little sister, 8th grade, was upstairs on the phone with her best friend. It was the 90s. And he goes up and strangles the little sister. Their mom was a nurse and she was at work. The best friend heard the whole murder over the phone. Police are sent to the house and they find the girls dead. They go to find the mom and stop her on the road before she gets home to tell her she just lost both of her kids. I don't remember if she was divorced or widowed. Brad turned himself in and is currently serving a life sentence. I think he was high when he did it. But I'm not sure. It blew our minds. I'd known him since kindergarten. I literally walked by his house almost daily because it was on the way to my grandparents' house.